For decades, the United States, Israel, and Iran navigated a carefully calculated standoff. But in less than one single week, that cold calculus has violently collapsed into unrestricted multi-front warfare. Prior to this explosion of violence, the conflict was largely a shadow war. It was fought through deniable cyber operations and a sprawling network of proxy militias. Proxy militias are locally raised armed groups, funded and directed by a foreign power, allowing nations to inflict damage without deploying their own troops. This carefully calibrated strategy kept the violence below the threshold of a direct state-on-state clash. That fragile equilibrium vanished on February 28, 2026, when joint U.S. and Israeli forces launched a massive wave of preemptive airstrikes directly onto Iranian soil. The immediate result of those strikes was a regime-altering decapitation, the confirmed death of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Killing the supreme leader crossed the ultimate red line. It erased the unwritten rules of deterrence, carved out a massive power vacuum in Tehran, and forced an existential military response that has dragged the entire region into a direct superpower war. Visualizing the retaliation, Iran launched massive drone and missile swarms targeting Gulf states and U.S. facilities. In response, the U.S. and Israel dropped over 4,000 bombs to systematically degrade Iranian air defenses and secure air superiority over western Iran. The air campaign quickly encountered extreme tactical friction. U.S. Central Command has relied heavily on lethal precision strikes to hunt down mobile targets, a process requiring constant surveillance and split-second reaction times to destroy launchers before they fire. But Iran's primary defensive advantage neutralizes much of that precision. The military utilizes complex underground missile silos that can launch without detectable surface pads, making it nearly impossible for Allied forces to preemptively locate and destroy the weapons. This intense initial exchange in the air proved that neither side could achieve a swift, decisive knockout blow. Instead, it guaranteed the violence would rapidly expand in geographic scope. Failing to contain the fight to the skies, the conflict breached the boundaries of the Middle East on March 3rd, as Iran began weaponizing its geography to hit international economic domains. The Iranian military officially closed the Strait of Hormuz, the vital choke point connecting the Persian Gulf to the ocean, deploying fast boats to block international commercial shipping. Look at this line chart mapping global oil prices. We see a flat baseline that suddenly spikes vertically on March 3rd. That jump represents the immediate disruption of 20% of the global oil trade, sending energy markets into an absolute panic. By March 4th, the escalation expanded far beyond the Persian Gulf. This map of the Indian Ocean traces a sweeping threat line down to Sri Lanka. There, an intense naval clash occurred, where a U.S. submarine sank an Iranian warship, resulting in 80 deaths. To understand the gravity of that moment, consider the history. This marks the first time a United States submarine has actively sunk an enemy warship since World War II. These synchronized economic and naval strikes proved the contagious nature of the violence. In exactly 96 hours, a localized Middle Eastern dispute morphed into a global supply chain and infrastructure crisis. On the ground and online, a thick fog of war now dominates the information domain. Both combatants are fighting fiercely for narrative control and psychological supremacy. While U.S. Central Command releases high-definition combat footage to project military dominance, Iranian state media is carefully engineering an image of regime continuity. They are heavily circulating portraits of clerics to project stability to their citizens, specifically positioning Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, for absolute succession. Backing up the U.S. strikes is a massive deployment of hardware and personnel. Over 50,000 troops, 200 fighter jets, and 2 aircraft carriers are now fully committed to the theater. And domestically, the political guardrails that might slow this down have collapsed. In a 53-47 vote, the U.S. Senate explicitly rejected limiting the president's war powers, effectively greenlighting unchecked escalation. The trajectory is uncompromising. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated, "Military operations are accelerating, not decelerating, with deeper strikes planned." The decades-long era of calibrated proxy deterrence in the Middle East is permanently dead. A systemic unraveling is now underway, a sprawling, multi-front war poised to permanently upend global security, alliances, and energy markets for a generation.